What's up, everybody? Welcome to Win, a show where we interview champions and trailblazers and ask questions to uncover and discover their championship traits for succeeding in sports, work, and life. I'm Lee Elias, and that's JB Spizo, and we are hosts on this journey. And our guest today has had two storied careers. One as an NHL, Olympic, and international hockey player who redefined the term puck-moving defenseman, and another as a business owner and co-host on the world's #1 hockey podcast in Barstool Sports Spittin Chiclets. If you haven't figured it out yet, we have the one and only Ryan Whitney joining us today on Win. Ryan, it's an honor to have you. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being on the other side of the mic with us for a change.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I appreciate this. And when JB came on our show a while back, I had mentioned I'd love to come do your guys' show. So it's good to finally be here.
It's great to have you here. I'll tell you, we have put JB's episode on your show in our Hall of Fame of episodes.
Oh, yeah.
It's not one of ours. We talk about it often. We reference it often. And again, we appreciate you returning the favor. So look, before we dive into your NHL and post-playing career, which you know our listeners know about, I want to dive into your developmental years first, you know, leading up to your time in the league. You went to some pretty notable schools and teams during that time. You went to Thayer Academy. You're part of the U.S. National Development Team. Boston University, you played under Jack Parker. So what I want to know is this, a lot of great moments in there, but what were the pivotal moments during this time, good or bad, that paved your way towards a career in the NHL?
That's a great question. I mean, like anyone who played in the NHL and got to that highest level, I think there's like a million different things that kind of had to go right. I think that there's so much more luck that goes into it than people actually realize. But one that kind of hops out right away to me is I switched from playing forward to defense, and I was 12, I believe, maybe 13. And funny enough, I love playing forward. That's all I'd ever played. And Buddy Yandel, who son Keith Yandel still plays in the NHL. He's on the Philadelphia Flyers, and his brother Brian at the time, they're both two of my best friends. Brian and I grew up playing together, and their father Buddy, he was one of the coaches of our team, and he knew a ton about hockey. He was a great player himself. Played at Boston College. Awesome guy and a great coach. And he went up to my dad and he said, "Hey, if Ryan wants to continue to play and get to a higher level and play high school hockey and maybe college hockey, you're not talking about the NHL then, right? You're just talking maybe play college hockey. I think he might be better off switching to D." And this was at a time, right, where hockey was different in a sense. The bigger you were, the more likely you were to maybe make it to the NHL. I mean, back then, I'm saying back then, but this was probably 97, 96. Right. Like there weren't many undersized guys. And I was really tall. When I was 12, I was 6'3". I was 6'3", 155 pounds when I was 12. So I was the same height, just minus about 70 pounds right now.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So I remember my dad come up and saying, "Hey, would you ever want to switch to D?" I said, no way. And he's like, "Well, I don't know, Buddy Yandel," and whatever he said, we pretty much listened to. He's like, he said he thinks you could be a much better defenseman and your size could really benefit you. And I said, all right, let's do it. And I ended up playing with his son, Brian Yandel, who was an amazing player, 2-time All-American at UNH and played pro a little bit, ended up getting a real bad leg injury, but we were partners. And now I look back, I never would have made the NHL as a forward. I never probably would have got a D1 scholarship as a forward. And Buddy Yandel, thank God he came up and said that to my father. And that's a pivotal thing when looking back and realizing how I kind of got to where I was.
Well, Ryan, just you accepting and making that switch, and taking the creativity and the scared, because all of a sudden you're switching up positions. It's difficult to do. And then somebody looking out for you and saying, you know what? Maybe if we try this, and you took the step of faith, like that's amazing for you just to even do that. Cause you're exactly right. Some kids are like, I'm not doing that. I like doing this, scoring goals or whatever the case may be. So
that's a great point. And I think that it kind of goes back into, I was so lucky. I come from an amazing family. Both of my parents, I appreciate and I'm so thankful for them. And I had great coaches like Buddy Yandel and all these other people along the way. It's like, that's why when people become so successful, whether it's sports or anything in life, without a strong family base, it's so much more amazing to me, because like, what are you without your family? And the people who are able to battle through tough upbringings, or not having support at home, and not having friends, and not having things to really like carry and lift you when it's not easy. Those people are so incredible. So I had a ton of different amazing coaches and family members, like I say. And then in terms of making the leap to just doing it and be willing to play D, I was all about, I wanted to play at the highest level more than anything. It's all I thought about. I've said this a lot on Chiclets. I was, from the time I can remember, I was just, I'm going to play in the NHL. I'm going to play in the NHL. I'm going to play in the NHL. I didn't have any other backup plan. I didn't think about anything else. I didn't care about anything else. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a great thing, but that was part of it in terms of like, oh, Buddy Yandel said I got a better chance to play in the NHL playing D. I'm a defenseman. Like, I didn't care. It was like, what, and I really believed him. And that's all it took. Like, whatever you told me that could get me to a higher level, I was willing to do.
You know, that's Ryan, that's so amazing. And you took the faith and you took the step, and somebody listened to you and spoke faith into you.
Without ego,
we talk,
too. Without ego, right? The ego was to make it. The ego wasn't, don't tell me who I'm going to be. I'm this type of player. The ego is, I'll do whatever I have to do to make it, but no personal ego. I just want to point that out because that's a huge part of, I think, part of the struggle, JB, for some athletes. Sorry to cut you off.
Sure. No, and that's a struggle for people in life. The other thing is that I always tell people, if they see something in somebody, they recognize something in somebody, tell them, pull them out of it. Say, you know what? Hey, you're pretty good at this. Or if you did this, you would be, you might be better. I think that's so important. Ryan, I just want to talk about, like, I've got to work with you in your NHL career. It was wonderful. You're an amazing player. You had an amazing career. But this is what I noticed about you. When we have somebody on there, I say, what have I, and people that I've known, what have I noticed about this person? And this is what I wrote about you. You brought positive culture. Every place you were, you brought positive culture. You were high-spirited. You were fun. You had an incredible work ethic. And can you tell us why culture is so important in any organization, sports or business?
It is the number one and most important thing. And when you think about showing up to work every day, whether it's playing a professional sport or showing up to work and in an office, what are you without the culture around you being positive? Because how are you supposed to be successful? And the fact that there's been teams and there's been people and businesses that have been successful with negative attitudes and negative cultures is actually like so outstandingly incredible to me, because that's the base on what everyone really relies and thinks upon every day. And so for example, like, I look at Chiclets, like what we do in our business, and I think that our culture is really, really solid because, one, we're positive people, and granted, I come off negative at times, but a lot of it, we're making content and stuff, and I can be known as a little bit of a complainer, but overall, I love my job, and I'm so fortunate and lucky to be doing what I'm doing, and that's pretty much what everyone else believes and thinks too. So every day when we show up, and it's positive energy, and it's like, not energy sucks, it's energy givers. It's like, oh my God, like, just appreciating what you do, what you have, creates everything in life. So if it's a sports team and you come in every day, and that's actually what I was disappointed with myself at the end of my career, was I had so many injuries at the time, and I was in Canada, and the fans didn't like me, and they didn't really have a reason to like me. I was playing poorly, and I was battling some depression too, in terms of kind of understanding my career's over. And at that time, I wasn't the same. I wasn't the same guy when we met, JB, in Pittsburgh and in West Point, and that amazing night and trip we had, when I had all this hope and I had all this positive energy behind me and loving what I was doing and loving my job. And by the time I was in Edmonton, I wasn't that. And I look back now, I actually talked about it on an article one time I did. I think it was the Players Tribune, or it might have been another article, but I mentioned I do have regret in terms of looking that when I was struggling mentally, I wasn't able to be that positive guy. And I was actually the opposite. I was the guy that was bringing people down, and the guy who everyone knows him at the office, who's kind of shit talking everything and everyone. And it's like, what do I want to be around this guy for? I want to be around the guy over there who's lifting me up and he's getting me fired up. And there's a huge difference, and culture is the entire body of like what you're going to be as a business or a team.
But Ryan, you recognize that, right? You
at the time, Later on, I did, but
that's okay. We go through that. I mean,
Yep.
I just had a call yesterday with an old friend of mine. He's a retired Army colonel, and we talked about our days in the Rangers. And I said, there's a couple times I could have done better, and he said, you know what, I could have done better too. And so, you know, you got to look at your entire body of work.
Yeah.
And so, but now what have you done? You looked at that, you know what, I could have been a little better at Edmonton. You turned this into this amazing business career.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the studio with you and I saw people just gravitated to you because, you know, you give that power and that hope and that faith. And what happens when you do that, you lift people's talent. And Lee and I say all the time to these young coaches, don't hammer these players. Sure, there's times you have to say, hey, Whit, you know, you need to do the forecheck better, whatever. But you have to lift players' talent. When you lift their talent, then you'll see the best come out of them.
Yes, that's no doubt. And I think that it also goes into the whole thing when we're recording and like I'm working now and doing Chiclets, I enjoy it so much. And not everyone loves their jobs. So you got to appreciate the fact that when you are doing something you truly enjoy, it's like, how lucky are we? I mean, I just look at it. I think I actually go through a lot of moments where it's like this guilt and like, why me? Like, why do I deserve this? And like, I'm so lucky and blessed to have what I have. So like, there's so many people who aren't. Like, I almost feel like I don't deserve it. And the best way that I've learned in like counter thinking that is just being like, well, you got it, so take advantage of it. And I think that since my career ended and it didn't go the way I had hoped, I've been able to look at things like, all right, well, look at this. You have another chance to do something else you love. Like, just go out and grab it by the balls and run with it.
You know, Ryan, first off, I want to thank you for being kind of vulnerable with this information. I think it's awesome that you're willing to express that. I think that's
No doubt. I think that's important too. I really do.
And what I want to tap on real quick before I jump into my next question is that what I find with depression, especially with high performers, you're a high performer, is that when you're there and that judgmental voice kind of starts stirring around, giving you the wrong messages, the high performers typically find a way back and they find something else to do. It's exactly what you did. So look, I can only imagine at that time of your career, what's going on. But my point is, and I think this is important for our audience to understand, if you want to dive into this a little bit, please do, is that, you know, you did all that stuff to make the league. And the truth is you can apply that to other things. And I think people forget that. So in the midst of depression, which is totally understandable, right? You still were able to overcome that, put the work ethic back in, get yourself to the next thing. I think it's important with people going through depression, athletes, coaches, anybody, that they realize, look, you gotta know your skill sets, know that that's a judgmental voice in your head. It's probably not really you, right? That's probably a lot of things, and that you can do it again. Even though it might feel like I don't want to do it again, I find that. Do you have anything to say, like a comment on that? That sound right?
Yeah, I think it does. I think the whole message that you'll hear people say is when you have certain thoughts or feelings that you don't like, it's like taking a step back and just thinking like that thought, that's a thought. Like, that doesn't mean anything. That's not who I am. That's not what I believe. That's not anything other than like a meaningless thought that can be gone.
Right.
And you just have to be able to be strong and hard enough. Now, the question is, and the issue is that some people, it's difficult and it's very hard. And when you don't have true friends and true family to lean on, like that, those are the times when you realize how important family and friendships are, because without that, like, the people who struggle and have times when it's really difficult for them to feel positive and feel good about themselves, they don't have people to lean on. Right. And I think that for me, I've always leaned on my friendships and my family. And now I'm lucky I have an amazing wife. I have two beautiful boys. And it's like the days that I'm not feeling down, it's like I'm doing this for them.
Right.
And how are you gonna allow yourself to at least, how am I going to allow myself to sulk and mope around when I have these amazing people that are counting on me? So I think that there's so many different things people go through that you have no idea. But when you do think about the fact that I was able to, you know, finish off a career that I was upset with in the NHL by going to Russia, like, that's something for me that I look back on with like a lot of pride. And I make a million jokes about it. And I just think that I had a lot of money. I had plenty of money to just stop playing hockey, but I wasn't done in my mind yet. And I knew my body wasn't exactly there, but in my mind, I just wasn't done yet. And when I was going over to Russia, I'll never forget, I had a buddy who said, there's no chance you'll make it. He'd played there. He said, there is zero, you will be back in 2 weeks. And I said, that.
Yeah,
Excuse my language. Excuse my
fine.
language.
Love it. Love
But I
it.
said, there's
You're
no chance. I said, I'm going over there and I've thought about what JB said to us a long time ago, embrace the suck. I've thought about that term since the day I heard it. And there's times I wish I was better at it, but I remember going over there and saying, like, I don't care how hard this is. I don't care how difficult it is. I'm staying until it's time to go home. And now that I did it, it's like, I have pride from that. I do. And that was something that wasn't easy for me to do.
I love that. And it also sounds like it reinvigorated you and woke that side of you back up again. And
Yeah, without that, there's no chiclets. It's crazy to see how things all come together.
but it's amazing where those motivations can come from too. Cause I've had similar moments in my life where someone said, hey, you can't do that. And it's like the Ron Burgundy nuclear explosions in the eyes out of nowhere. And it's just like, what did you say? I also want to say just real quick, man, especially with people with depression. So I've described it this way to a friend before. It's like you're on your knees and you're looking down like at the abyss and you just don't know to look back up because someone's hand is probably there trying to help you out. But you got to turn around and look. And then I also reiterate that there are people that turn around, there's no one there and they still get back up. So it's like, you got to find those anchors and you got to find those belief systems. JB, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off again.
No, it's so important that we talk about this because, I struggled with it too, Ryan. And you saw me always chiseled, ready to go. And I still struggle with it. We all do. And that's all part of that learning and developing. And I love the fact you went there and you're like, damn it, I'm not coming back.
No, I was like, I have to stay now.
I'm not coming back.
Not a lot of people say that about Russia, by the way, but you did.
True. No,
right.
Well, I wrote yesterday in my notes, I try to journal a little bit, and I wrote, finish what you start. And that's exactly what you did. You took it as a challenge, you found it, you dug through it, you gritted it a little bit, cowboy up, and you're better off for it. And Ryan, I want to go, you have a great family. I was fortunate to have a great family, born in Pittsburgh, raised in a nice community. And I saw you in the AHL. You were doing a rehab stint. You're in the AHL, and I remember, T-Rex was there, that whole group, and I remember that they were having Jimmy John's or something for lunch, and you gave your credit card to the equipment manager, and you said, "Get everybody food." I want salad. I want meat, the whole pasta. I want everybody to have food. You gave me your credit card and you're like, and the staff too. And, next thing you know, trays of food are being delivered. And I saw that about you, like selflessness, because guys in the AHL, it's not the NHL.
No, exactly.
It's not the NHL and it's professional hockey, but it's completely different. And I saw that part of you about selflessness, putting others first. So was that something you grew up with, learned from your parents, or did you learn that over time?
I was just from day one, my mother and father just drilled that into all of us. It's like, it's doing what you can for other people. And it's hard, right? Like all the time, not all the time is it easy to kind of put put others ahead of yourself. And certainly I don't do it all the time, but it's an amazing life lesson looking back, like, what can you do for other people? Like in what ways can you help someone else? And I think that it goes back to being a good brother, right? Like I was the oldest of three. I have two younger brothers, and my dad was really like, take care of your younger brothers. You got to take care of your squad. You got to take care of your family and your friends. And from that point on, my whole life, I just saw my parents kind of living a certain way too, where my dad was always doing things for other people. It's almost like a fault. Like he's always just checking in on, he's really good. One of those people that's really good at checking in on people, not necessarily checking in, but keeping in touch. Like I'm not great at keeping in touch with people. My dad was so good at that. And he would keep in touch with people. And through those conversations, he would find out something that they were looking to do or get. And all of a sudden he'd go do it for them. And I always just remember being younger, like, oh, dad's doing something for him. Dad's doing something for them. And I think that, like, looking back now, I'm a father. I hope my son sees that in me. And it's like, that's teaching through kind of what you do. Like that's him. He was being a leader, through actions, not necessarily just telling me with words. So I had very good things to see and witness growing up that kind of taught me to put others ahead of yourself. I think that's such an important quality.
It feels good too. It feels good too.
It does feel good. It
Yeah.
feels way better giving a Christmas gift than getting one.
Right.
It's like an age old saying.
It's one of those things I learned though, is that, sometimes, right, you're like this, like when I'm upset or I'm having a rough day, I actually trigger myself to, hey, go do something for someone else real quick. And I can't, 10 out of 10 times, it either turns the ship for me or I just feel better. Just to prove point. Go ahead, JB.
No, I was just saying, and it doesn't have to be tied to monetary value.
Right.
It could just be calling the guy and saying, "Hey, you okay? Hey, brother, what's going on?" And that's the most important thing about it. When I was working for the Panthers, I would stop at 7-Eleven and every morning and get this coffee, and there was a kid standing there every day, kind of. And I was like, finally, one day, I'm like, "You want a job?" And he's like, "Yes." I'm like, "Here." And I put him at the practice facility, like at skate rental.
No way.
Yeah. And next thing you know, the kid's like rising up through the ranks.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's like, I'm like, "You want a job?" And so the point is that you need to find these things, and it's reaching out with your time. Your time is the most valuable currency, and that's what your dad did. That's what your family does. That's what you're doing. And your sons are going to learn from that, because you're imprinting that on them now, that we care about other human beings.
Yeah.
Let's continue to do that. Thank you for that, Ryan.
Yeah, no doubt. It's so true. It's like, that's something I'll never waver from. I know that.
This next question is right in JB's wheelhouse, and Ryan, we're always excited to talk about leadership. A quick story before we do, you guys just reminded me of when I was playing college hockey. We used to go to Subway before the games or after the games. And JB, you just reminded me of this with the 7-Eleven story. There was a kid behind the counter. This just shows you leadership and learning can come from anywhere, right? You can tell the kid wasn't born in America, but really nice guy. And he was always there. No matter what hour of the day I was there, this kid's always there, right? And I remember asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, what's your goal? And he goes, I just want to work. I'm making money. I'm going to school. I'm going to open my own restaurant. Right. It was like a Goodwill Hunting moment. My fourth year, my senior year, I walked in there and I remember this. He wasn't there because he had done it. And it was like that. He just did it, and he moved on and he opened his restaurant. And I remember learning, like, man, this guy's working harder than I am. You know what I mean?
Like, and he has the goal though.
Right.
He knows what he's working towards.
Right. And he had the goal, and he didn't have the means to accomplish it. So he made it happen. Right. I always say this, when we're playing sports, you always got to take a moment and realize when your coach are playing. Ryan, you talked about this. JB, you talk about this all the time. Like, man, whether it's you're on a bench with 20,000 people or your parents, how lucky are we to be able to play this sport when there's men and women fighting for our freedom, when there's the guy or the woman at 7-Eleven trying to make their future. So leadership can come from anywhere. So Ryan, you had a great career. You got to play with a lot of notable people, some of them captains, some of them leaders in their own right. Let's dive into that a little bit. Tell me about some of the great leaders that you played with, or if you want, you don't have to mention by name, but maybe some bad leaders and what you learned along the way about leadership and how it affected your life.
I got pretty lucky. The teams I was on had some really solid leaders, and even Edmonton, where we struggled, my good friend Sean Horkoff was the captain, and this guy was like, he embodied what a leader is, like first in, last out, professional, every single day, going as hard as possible. His entire life was dedicated and based towards hockey, and his body being as finely fit as it could be, and all the things that you'd want in a leader. And so, like, even on a bad team, right, you can have some amazing leadership. We probably would have even been worse had it not been for him. And he was also going through something that he was a very highly paid player in Edmonton, and his offense wasn't the same as it had been when he signed his contract. And so you can imagine he's been there 15 years, and he's taking a lot of heat from some Canadian hockey fans daily. And he was able to just every single day show up and work. And that was something I look back on now. Like that wasn't easy for him. And he was our captain, and through losing seasons and being considered one of the guys to blame in quotations for why you're losing, and to act the way he did I'm very admirable of that. And then I go back to Pittsburgh, and Sid became the captain at a pretty young age, but I saw Mark Recchi right away. And like, you see Mark Recchi, same thing. He was I would say he was more of a leader through example. No, I'm not saying he was like not talkative and stuff, but he more just like every day, same thing, showed up. I was like, this guy's played like 1,200 games, and every single day he's doing the exact same thing. It's like creatures of habit who are successful. Like you see for the reason why every day he's got to do that. He's got to get dressed at the same time, and it's all based on performance. And I want to continue to perform the same way. And even if this isn't why I'm doing it, in my head it is. So I'm going to keep doing it. And so to see a guy who played that long that I grew up watching play, to see like, oh my God, this is why he's played that long, right? Like I'm seeing things, and there's no acts. The guys who play 20 years, it's not an accident. And now I would say if you played 20 years in the 80s and 90s, I would say now it's kind of like playing 15 years. It's almost gone down 5 years, I think, in terms of they're similar and to how different the game is now. The guys who play 15 years in the NHL now, that's not happening randomly. That's not by chance or by luck. It's like I think so many people are out there and watch and see what guys have and say, oh, look what they have. It's like you have no clue what goes into this. People have no clue that Sidney Crosby, and I don't know if he still does it, I wouldn't be surprised, but while in the NHL, still getting up at 6 a.m. and skating by himself in the summers. Like this isn't by chance, and none of it is. And like I mentioned at the beginning, luck is an enormous factor, but it's not as much of a factor as the work that people truly put in. And I think that like leaders like Sid showed me that. Leaders like Mark Recchi. I got to Anaheim, and the captain there was Scott Niedermayer. So quiet. One of the best defensemen to ever play the game. I remember I've said before, this guy would play 30 minutes a game, and he'd get off the ice and there'd be a $quarter size sweat mark on his shirt, and everything else was bone dry, like a freak of nature. And he was very quiet, but he went about things in a way where he was very consistent into what he did. And his game was so good because he was so consistent. But like for him to be a leader, to me, I noticed there was times he'd get pissed off and the Hulk would come out, the rage that he had. And rage can be a good thing, right? Like rage is something you need in life, I think, a little bit of at certain times. And it would come out where you're like, oh my God, like Scott Niedermayer, just go easy. Scotty Niedermayer doing his job every day, pretty simple, standard. All of a sudden, like that's part of him. And that was leadership, I think, to guys, because if you're going to see him not allow himself to be pushed around, and you're going to see him get pissed off, like that means everyone has the right and probably should be getting a little bit more pissed off to how this game's going right now.
Just want to note real quick that when he left New Jersey, where he also had an amazing time, and he was allowed to grow the facial hair. It just made that Hulk even scarier than
exactly. Yeah. This guy would just snap on occasionally snap, and he wasn't big. He was, like he was probably 5'11", $175, $185, great shape.
Right.
But he would just snap and run. I remember he ran over Datsuk one time. I'm like, holy crap. So just, I saw so many great leaders. I really did.
Ryan, what you said, and I was taking notes on all these captains that you're talking about and the similarities, and the key factor of all this is authentic. They're authentic people. And, when we talk about young coaches that are listening to this podcast and they want to be Ken Hitchcock or Nick Saban or somebody else, just be you, be authentic, because if not, the players, whoever you're managing, see right through that, because you can't fake it inside the room. Yep.
They know. And I think it's great for coaches to try to, same as players, right? You pick people that you can learn from and want to be and want to be like, but you still have to be yourself. And I remember being younger, I was like constantly kind of comparing myself to others, and my dad saying like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that. It's you can pick things that people possess that you wish you had, and you can work towards adding stuff like that to your arsenal in terms of whether it's sports or life, but you can't compare yourself to that person. They're their own person. And any coach out there who's trying to be like, I'm going to be like John Cooper, I'm going to do exactly what John Cooper does and says, it's just like, guys are going to know that that's not you. And I think that the biggest thing players look for in coaches is being authentic and being true to themselves, because once you see the fakeness, it's like, the respect level is immediately just going to go down.
It's like that episode of Ted Lasso, right, JB, where he turns into Led Tasso, and it's a hilarious episode because it's not him. And like, that's what it kind of looks like in a locker room when a coach just is like, let me try and be the mean guy, and I'm not ever mean. It's hilarious. It's not real. So
yeah. It's crazy. Ryan, I just wanted to touch on, the NHL. I think, players like you have made it better. And I'm always hoping that players like you, Kevin Weeks, even Sid when he's done playing, take a more of an executive role in the NHL, because I think the NHL still is stuck in some of its old school, good old boy. I don't want to bang on the Western Canadians, but Western Canadian philosophy. And you've seen it. You've seen these GMs and these coaches, and they're stuck right here. And I think what happens is that does not allow the players to bring their full potential out. Now it can't get loosey goosey, but it has to be an organization, and it has to be a league where we are being open and honest and transparent with each other. And when we do that, regardless of what you're running, a business or a sports team, I think that's important. Can you touch on that a bit for us?
Yeah, it's like if you're going to work every day, no matter what you're doing, and you got some guy who's just a miserable old bastard and never ever happy and always like, it's just like, what's wrong with this guy? He's got this puss on his face constantly. And then you go to work at another place, and every day the guy's like, what's going on? How you doing? You ready to go today? Let's have a great day. It's just like, which one would you rather? And for some reason, not just hockey, all sports, like back in the day, it was just, that's how it was. I mean, it was different. It was a different time in the world, to where it was a lot of negativity, and it was a lot of people that were just not looking to bring people down, but just be hard on people for no good reason. And there's a time and a place to be hard on somebody and to say straighten up and fly right. But with hockey, it was like the way that these GMs and some of these people that worked high up in the business would act. It was just made no sense to me. Like, looking back, like, you want you're playing these athletes millions of dollars. You need them to be performing at a high level, yet you're treating them like absolute crap away from the ice. It just made no sense. And so I think with the game changing, like, I look at Ray Sherrill. Ray Sherrill, what a great guy. And he was ahead of his time in a sense that
Absolutely was.
he was just a regular guy. And by saying regular guy, it maybe doesn't sound impressive, but it was, because you knew how much this guy knew. And you know what? I wonder if Ray Sherrill was that way because his father, Fred, had been around the NHL for a long time. And I know he was probably a hard-nosed coach, coaching in the Flyers back in the day, but Ray probably saw his dad do so many things that he carried with him. And he probably saw his dad do some things. He said, I'm never really going to be like that. And so I think being around the game for as long as he had at such a young age probably shaped Ray Sherrill to be this class act person who constantly treated everyone the way that he wanted to be treated. It was like, I saw around the league coaches and GMs who didn't show respect to the trainers and didn't show respect to the high school kid in the locker room who was picking up tape. And then you'd see Ray Sherrill, and he knew everyone's name, and he said, please and thank you to everyone. And he appreciated what everyone was bringing to the table, whether it was Sidney Crosby or whether it was the guy that was waving you into the players parking. It was like a vibe and an energy that he had that was definitely, I think, a reason that the Penguins got over the hump and won that Stanley Cup against the Wings. So I think looking at the game now and where it could be, it's on the right track, right? I think Kyle Dubas is one of those guys too, where I hear a lot of things out of Toronto. People really respect how he treats and talks to everyone. You saw when John Tavares got the Corey Perry knee to his face last year and was knocked out. You could tell how upset Dubas was. He ran down. He wanted to get in touch with Tavares's family and wife, and so guys like that around the league that are becoming more prominent is a good thing. So it takes time to change a league that's been the same way for 100 years, but I think we're getting there in terms of players just getting treated with a little bit more respect. And that's not to say that some of these players don't deserve to get a kick in the ass once in a while, and don't deserve to be healthy scratched, and don't deserve for occasionally to be called out in the media by their coach. None of that has to go away forever. It's just about, on a human level, like, these guys, they're putting their every day, they're putting their heart and soul into what they're doing. And why not support them a little bit more, as opposed to just giving them the business and grinding their gears a little too often.
Ryan, it's creating that goodness in the organization. Goodness leads greatness. You said it before. Yeah, you can have greatness. You can have that lightning in the bottle, which it happens once in a while. The organization is dysfunctional, but you have the best players. Your goalie stands on his head, whatever,
Yeah.
and you get a win.
But it doesn't last.
But doesn't last is exactly right, because you have to create goodness throughout the organization. When you create that goodness, that mutual respect, you're exactly right. I watched coaches and players and just mistreat each other and staff. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Stop that. And I'll tell you just a quick story about Ray Shiro. Ryan, is when I went to work for Pittsburgh, I said, what do you want me to do? And this is what he said to me. He says, coaches see what they want to see, both good and bad. Help them see what they're missing. I was like,
no way.
I was like, wow. And so then I looked at everybody else differently, because I wasn't putting you in a lineup or taking you out of lineup. But I was like, maybe if you talk to this guy a little differently, you might get the best out of him. And all of a sudden they were like, and the coaches were fortunate to be open to that. So you're exactly right.
Well, it's true. It's true too. When you talk about like what coach thinks it's good, and the fact that this used to happen is like, you can't talk to every guy the same way. It's like, it's so elementary thinking, but like some people can handle you being hard on them. Some people can't. And a coach's job, besides the X's and O's in hockey and any sport, is to like learn personalities, right, and to be a little bit of a manager. And like, what does this kid need to hear? What does this kid need to see? What does he need to be successful? Because it's my job to get the most out of him that I can. And if I'm going to treat every single guy the exact same, it's like, what if you gave every single person the same clothes to wear? Like, no, people are different. Right. People don't enjoy doing and hearing the same thing. You got to find the ways to get through to guys.
You'll never get the best talent out of them unless you do that.
Well, and here's the thing, guys. This is what I'm always saying. And this is for coaching, captains, GMs, owners, business owners, doesn't matter. My goal as a leader is to inspire maximum performance. Right. And when you dive into that, what does that mean? Because you have to touch them on a human level, not just a skill level. And the first thing, again, and Ryan, I'd love your thoughts on everything I'm about to say. You have to establish trust on some level. You have to know what it means. You have to define it communally, because it can mean different things to different people. Then, and you just tapped on this, Ryan, I am shocked at coaches. Sometimes I say, do you know how every player on the team is motivated? And they go, no. I said, then how the hell are you motivating them? And you better not say that's not my job, because that's totally your job, right? Or at least to delegate it. So, those two things create maximum performance. And then it's funny you bring this up, because JB and I were just having this conversation prior to the show about how there's that kind of, well, players are cattle mentality sometimes. And again, it is starting to break quite a bit, right? It's not like it was maybe 50 years ago. But here's the thing, players are people. And I don't care if they're here for one game or, as you said, a 20-year career, they're people. So treat them like people, right? We had Mike McKenna on previously, like right before you. And, this is a guy who plays one game at a time in the NHL and is back down. He says, I just wanted to be there, do the best I could possibly do my job. And he commented on organizations that he was there for one night. They treated him like crap sometimes, and sometimes they treated him great, right? So no matter the position in the hierarchy of a sports organization or a business organization, your ability to communicate with these people on a human level, know how they tick, build that trust, know what motivates them, is so key to getting maximum performance, right? And again, and Ryan, again, you can comment on this. Look, we know this. Most players in pro sports, not all, they're tradable. It's just the truth. Okay. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's the truth. There's a select few that are really not tradable.
Yeah.
All right. And what I find is that you want to get, if you trade them, bring them in, bring them out. You want to get the best out of that person for as long as they're there. Ryan, I talked a lot there, obviously, but on any level, coaching, GM, ownership, just talk about, again, you did a little bit. What stood out to you? Like you said Shiro did it. What else stood out? Like, what is the things that our audience needs to hear to get that maximum performance out of their people?
I think a lot of it goes into knowing them personally. And that's kind of easier said than done, because if you're a coach of an NHL team, you probably have a family. You got 20 guys. How are you going to know all about their families? And it's like, there's so much that goes into it. And I know there's many people who maybe disagree with this, but if I'm coaching, I'm trying to find out as much about each guy as I can. Where'd you come from? what do you believe your strengths are? What do you think your weaknesses are? What do you have as a support system at home? You know, all these things that once a player is like, wow, this guy, like, he really truly cares about me. Like, how is it where you're not, even if it's subconsciously going to put a little bit more effort in and care a little bit more based on the fact that, like, we are a family here. Like, I don't know my contract situation. I got a year left. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but right now where I am, I feel like I'm really part of a family. So you can't expect a head coach, right, to know every single thing about every guy that he's coaching, but that's what coaching staffs are for. You got assistant coaches. Hey, man, why don't you get to know those three guys? Like, why don't you at least this week kind of maybe it used to never happen. I think it's starting to change a little bit. Grab a coffee with the guy after practice. Hey, you want to go grab a coffee? Let's talk 20 minutes. And the player's going in there thinking, what did I do? Right. What's going on here? And then all of a sudden, after 20 minutes of grabbing a snack or a coffee and just shooting the crap, bullshitting with the guy, you're like, wow, like, that's not the coach I know and sometimes can't stand on the ice. That's him as the person. And right. So things like that end up going a long way, sound and feel to people like it'd be so difficult to do, but it's not. It's really not. It's like, what's better off for a coach doing? We're watching 20 minutes of film of the other team's PK before the next game, or spending 20 minutes with a guy who's maybe struggled in the past 5-6 games. Yeah. What is better off for the team? Because in my mind, it's trying to get a guy going by looking at it a different way. Let's not show him video, and let's not talk about the mistake he made in the game the other night. Let's just ask him what's going on in life right now. And if the guy doesn't want to talk to you, then so be it. But if he does, he probably is going to appreciate a lot more than he thought he would.
Ryan, I asked a coach, and I were talking about a player, and he said to me, he goes, that player doesn't play for the logo on the front of his jersey. And I said, no, he doesn't. He plays for his name on the back. And the coach got all upset. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, Coach, can this young man help you win? He goes, yeah, he's very talented. I said, okay, then find out what's important to him. Let's make him put it in its right place and see if you can work there. And then the coach, he took a completely different attitude, and he found out what was important to the player. The kid wanted to help his family, the whole thing. Okay, put that in its right place. And he ended up being a very talented player and helping the team move on. But you have to get rid of those old school, like play for the logo, that sort of thing. Of course, we want to be all in together, but we have to create that.
But that's not natural off the start.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. That chemistry is forged inside that locker room. And Ryan, that's what that's what you brought to teams. You brought great chemistry, because that chemistry, it's up to the senior leadership to massage it, to make sure it's healthy. It has to be healthy culture, but it's up everybody inside that locker room has to keep it healthy, has to promote that healthy relationships with one another.
Yeah, it's very true, to be able to be constantly trying to be yourself. And even when on the days you're not feeling great, to try to just fake it till you make it a little bit. Right. I mean, it's really hard. 82 game season, 8 or 9 months, if you're going on a nice little run, being together with the same 20 guys. So there's going to be days when guys aren't feeling like themselves and aren't feeling like, maybe lifting spirits the way they usually do. But that's when somebody else would say, all right, if Whit's not feeling it today, let's get him today. I got him today. I can pick up him today. I can take his role. He'll be back tomorrow, but let's all step up to really kind of pick up a guy who's down. And that's what a true team is. And when you say what you said to that coach, he doesn't play for, he does play for himself. Well, once you learn and find out why the guy is the way he is, that's how you could figure out to get him to be a part of the team a little bit more. And let's be honest, right? Everyone's different. When you're younger, some kids are naturally about the team. And I think a lot of times those kids are lucky enough to maybe have moms or dads who played sports. It could teach them it is team, it's team first, and there's no I in team, and all the sayings that there are out there that are true. But then there's kids who play sports, their parents never played sports, and they so happen to be an unreal baseball player, and Hey, how'd you get into the game? Your dad played? No, my dad never played. I just started playing and I liked it. And a lot of times those kids, they don't have anyone to teach them how it is and how it's supposed to be. And so if you don't have somebody that's played a game before, been a part of team sports, it's like, how are you supposed to know that you got to put the team ahead of yourself sometimes? Because as an athlete, the natural thought would be like, I just got to do whatever I could do to play the best that I can be. And it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. Well, no, it kind of does. So that's why, like, when I talk about, hopefully my boys love sports. My oldest has just turned 4. He loves sports. I'll have him play everything. And the one thing is, I love golf. People say, you want to play golf? I say I do. I'd love him to play golf. I hope I can play golf with him someday. But I also want him to play team sports, because when you're in the individual sport life, it can be very difficult to then go to a team and realize, like, wait a minute, I gotta take a step back, and it's just a different mindset. And some people don't know what it takes until they've experienced it.
Totally. What I love about this, Whit, is it goes beyond sports into any team environment, right? Like, so
Yeah, it's just life.
right. JB and I build teams. It's what we do. I always say, I can get, JB can get anybody, really. You can get any team bonded for a day. It's actually not that hard, right? But continuing that bond is the real trick here, right? I always use the word nurture. You can build the bond, but then you got to nurture it throughout the season, because crap's going to happen. Stuff's going to happen throughout, because life happens, right? And you got to be able to navigate it. That's going back to what you said. Like, you're having an off day, someone else has to step up. I see this in the medical field. Doctors, right? Think about being a doctor. You have your nose in the book for 8 years, right? Trying to be a doctor. Then you get out. You haven't been part of a team probably since you were in high school, if you did at all. And now you have to work with these patients and this group of people, and it's difficult. And I'm not being hard on doctors. I'm actually empathetic to them. It's very difficult, right, to be part of a team after that. So being part of a team at any level is a value. Studies show, psychology shows, human beings, introvert, extrovert, all of us need to be part of a community or a group to succeed. And we yearn for that. Again, even if you're a private person, you yearn for that community. So we got to dive into this last question here, Whit, because if I don't ask this, the audience is going to kill me. Obviously, you've had an amazing post career here with Spittin Chiclets and Pink Whitney and everything that you do. So I'm not going to ask you about how did that start and all the backup stuff about that. I am going to say this, that I think the reason your podcast, actually I know it, is so great is because it feels like you're in the room with you guys when you're talking, right? That's what really makes a great podcast. And we talked about community and team. When you're doing your podcast, it feels like we're sitting there with you in the studio talking with you, right? That's the key. And I want to know, what did you grab from your professional hockey career? What did you grab from your youth that's rounding this whole episode out that you applied to Spittin Chiclets, to New Amsterdam, to Pink Whitney, to all of it, that have now made this such a successful career? Because it is unbelievable what you've done. You are now a massive influencer in hockey and in broadcasting. like how, just walk the audience through that, because I think it's important for them to see that obviously there's life after sport. That's really important, right?
Yeah.
And that you can apply those skill sets you learned in sport to do something incredible afterwards.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Those are really kind words, and I appreciate it. I think JB said it before. It's being authentic, and like I'm really truly trying to stay myself and be who I am. And I know that's why this thing became successful, is because all of us we were ourselves, right? And luckily people enjoyed listening to us be ourselves. But it's harder too as the time goes on. It's the same way. It was harder as your career goes on. It's harder as this Spittin Chiclets thing goes on to really remain true to yourself, because you get pulled in different directions, and there's more things going on, and there's more stuff that we promised to do, and there's time constraints and all these things, and being a father. And I just try to, when I'm doing something, be all in. That's not a new concept, but it's new to my life. And like, I spend so much of my time worrying about things. I've always been that way as a kid. My mom always said, like, I was always worrying, like, what if I don't, what if this does, what if this happens? What if this happens? And it's like such a waste of energy. And now what I do is, when I'm recording Chiclets, I'm all in. I'm 100%. I'm in. And when I'm being a dad, I'm all in. And when I'm playing golf, I'm all in. And when I'm doing something for my wife, I'm all in. And it's like, it's helped me because what's the point of worrying about what I got to do this tomorrow with my kids, but I got an interview at night. It's like, what are you doing? And so, like, I think I've been successful, and all of us have been successful because we're just all in on what we're doing. It's like, if you can give everything you got to whatever you're doing, and like, this is like I'm even talking about, like, I'm going for a walk around the neighborhood. I'm having a nice walk. I'm not thinking and worrying about all this stuff that could go wrong or could not go wrong. And it's like, just do what you're doing and do it as well and as hard as you can do. And I'm pretty sure most of the time you're going to come out better for it on the other side, because that means that you were invested into what was happening at that time, and you were invested into what you were doing and what you were being. And it doesn't give you time, and it doesn't give you energy to even worry about the other stuff, because the other stuff doesn't matter.
Right.
And so for me, like, I know it sounds simple, but I love doing Spittin Chiclets. And I love being a father, and I love my wife. So whenever I'm doing it, why would I not enjoy it? Why would I not enjoy those moments and worry about other stuff when I'm like sitting at night and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I got everything going. So it's like, I don't know. It's not as easy as I say, but it's something that I've been focusing on.
You can practice, because what you're talking about,
practice it.
You're talking about present moment awareness.
Present moment
awareness.
Right?
That's the term I'll use now.
And thank you. It was taught to me too. But you have to practice it, because the voices in your head, it's very, very tough to quiet them. But this is what I want athletes.
I used to even really struggle in having conversations, right? I'd be talking to someone and I wouldn't even be listening. Right. I wouldn't even know what they were at the end. I was like, I don't even know what they're saying, because I'm thinking of, what am I going to say back? What am I going to do? And now it's like present moment awareness. It's helped me. It's like, be in the conversation, be a part of what that person's trying to tell you. And then you're more fulfilled at the end anyways, because you're learning and hearing things you never would have heard had you been in your old ways of worrying and being a scatterbrain.
It's a balance act, Whit. And this is what I find, is that there's the past, there's the future, and the present. Most people live in the past or the future and not in the present, which is really the only thing that matters. This is reality, right? And then it's control. People worried about things they can't control instead of what they can control. And that's like that x-axis, or the target. And it's a balancing act. But if you can harness it, what you're doing towards that bullseye, your life's going to be amazing, because you're focused on the present moment, whatever you're doing. This podcast is my life at the moment. Just like you said, right? I've got kids. I love my kids, right? And I'm not worried about the things I can't control. I'm not worried about if the internet goes out right now. Doesn't matter, right? I'm in that zone. And this is the key, just to finalize this. And JB, I know you're definitely going to want to comment on this too. If you're an athlete, if you've ever been in the zone, if you've ever been on the ice or on the court or on the field and you felt it, you were in the present moment. You can do this. You've already done it. You just might not be aware that you're doing it. You probably learned the ability to do this playing hockey, man. Right. But this is a key to life. It's not even just a key to sport, right? Present moment awareness. Go ahead, JB. Sorry.
No, I just said in the military, we used to say fight in the now, right? You can't worry about like, oh my gosh, what if we get attacked from here? Well, right now.
Yeah. What if 30 guys show up over that hill?
Exactly. Well, right now we have this. Let's take care of that fight in the now. That was amazing, Ryan. You are such a leader, and you have so much to give people, and you give people your time. You're always respectful. I appreciate you and everything you've done for me and my family and everybody that you're touching along the way. You're making not only the sport, but you're making the world a better place. And you know what? You should give yourself some kudos for that.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to everything you've done. I've said that a million times over. I couldn't thank you enough for everything you've ever done for us in this country and your family. So I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. This is great. I'd come on anytime you want. It's really cool to see what you guys have grown here. So I've seen you had Rick Nash on, you had a bunch of other guys on, and I've listened. So I'm grateful for being on here, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Well, look, we're humbled that you took time from the #1 podcast to be on our podcast. And this is what I'll tell
I always got time for you guys.
No, I appreciate that, brother. And again, if you guys want to know more about Ryan Whitney, not tough to find, just Google him or look up Spittin Chiclets. It's not hard to find. And Pink Whitney, check that out on the internet as well. Also, Thank you all for listening to this episode of Win Championship Trades for Life. If you want more information on the show or Grit, you can check us out at Grit Athletes across social media or pivotalmomentsmedia.com. We have a lot of education there, a lot of podcasts there, but if mental fitness is something you want to dive into like we did on this show today, check out that website. There's a lot of tools there for you. But for Ryan Whitney and JB Spizzo, I'm Lee Elias, and we'll see you next time on Win Championship Trades for Life. Have a great day, everybody.